Good morning, everyone. So glad you're here. Welcome to CX Trend, y'all. It is the beginning of 2026. We are almost through February. Hopefully you are somewhere warm like Diane and I in Texas. But if you're not, cozy up, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk about the future of CX as our esteemed panelists see it. I'm Crystal Wiese. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Question Pro, and I'm based in Austin, Texas, where it's hopefully going to be a warm 85 today. Let me know where you guys are in the comments. If you have any questions for our panel, we do have obviously a set agenda to kind of walk through, but if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments and we will get them up on the screen for our team here. But without further ado, let's get started. And I'm just going to go around and start with Nick. Tell us who you are, why you're here, and why you love CX.
Well, my name is Nick Glimsdahl. I am here because Crystal was so kind to say, hey, you should be here. So that's the reason. You know what? I love CX because there's so much to do. There's also so much misconception of what CX is. And yeah, you know, for me, I'm an author of the Heart of Service that came out in the fall. I also help organizations make their contact center run better, smoother, and focus on the business outcome. So it's a little bit about me.
That's so fun. And where are you located?
Oh, Dayton, Ohio, and it's 27 degrees here.
Okay. I'm going to say I still win.
Yes.
Diane, tell us who you are. You're one of my favorite people. I'm so glad you're here. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, a little bit about me. I'm in Dallas, Texas, so hopefully it's 85 here too. You would think that San Antonio and Dallas aren't that far apart, but they are because our state is takes 8 hours to get across it. Anyway, I have been in this space longer than I care to admit, but really started in the probably late or mid 2000s. And one of the things that I love about this space, I'm super passionate about being really the connective tissue for organizations. Because we know they're really good at silos, they're really good at doing some things here and there, but as it relates to thinking outside and then connecting the pieces inside that need to happen, that's really where I found my thrill. I'm also an author of a book where we talk a lot about the experience operating system, making sure this gets built into the DNA of an organization. And I think that trend we're seeing a lot more come up around operating models and operating systems as it relates to this experience. And I'm excited about today because I think if we think about what we need to be doing to prepare for the next couple of years and this new generation that they've not even really named yet, what are we going to do and how are we going to make their lives better by creating great experiences?
I love that. So forward thinking, Diane. You're such like a bleeding heart, I feel like. You and Nick, that's why you're friends.
Always, thank you.
Always. And we're going to go down then to our wonderful, esteemed, essentially boss, Ken Peterson, President of Customer Experience at Question Pro. Ken, where are you? Why do you love CX? What do you do?
I am in Kootenai, Idaho, and if you don't know where that is, it's in the panhandle of Idaho, up by the Canadian border. It's rainy here. It's not snowing, unfortunately. I'd rather have the snow. I got into this is sort of my third career. My customer experience career, certainly my longest, but for several years I spent in retail operations, and it was all about the numbers and all about statistics. And I was brought into customer experience to actually fix an operational problem, but I fell in love with it and stayed with it because it was looking at those problems I was solving and then putting that human voice to it. And sort of this whole trend, it went from building that out, and then it became everything about an NPS score. And then suddenly now we're back to how can this technology make the operations better, make our jobs smarter, and make people happier. And it's like, you know, when we start layering in the AI, it's just very exciting for me. So I'm glad I sort of unretired a few years ago and came back and started doing this because I'm having the time of my life marrying all this together.
I love that. And we're so happy you're here. Sarah, tell us a little bit about you. You're probably the one I know the least about, so I'll give you
Sure.
the most time.
Oh, you're so kind. Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Andrews. I'm located in South Bend, Indiana, which is about 40 minutes north of Michigan. It is 17 degrees, and we have a ton of snow here, so I'm very jealous of Crystal and Diane. I've been doing CX actually since I was 14 years old. My first job was in a compounding pharmacy, and I got to see these pharmacists work directly with patients to make medication that could alleviate their pain. And so that's where I got bitten by the bug. And then I spent 11 years at Press Ganey traveling the country and helping hospitals improve the delivery of patient care. And I just couldn't stop. So if I had to say my center bingo square would probably be cross-functional collaboration. And that's what really gets me excited for the work that we do, because to build on what Nick and Diane said, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about our work. But really, when we go to other department leaders to be in service of their teams, they get what we want and we get what I want. And then our company grows. So that's why I'm here today. And I'm excited to join you all. Thank you.
I love that. We're happy you're here, and welcome to your first Question Pro live stream webinar shenanigan. We hope you have a good time. And last but not least, joining us from a completely different continent, Thomas. Tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're here.
Hi, Crystal. Thank you for having me. I'm Thomas. I'm the managing director from our DACH region plus Poland. I'm right now in Poland. So I'm on the other side and give you my perspective. I actually started for 12 years like Ken in the retail. So I brought actually customer feedback into a lot of retail stores in Germany. And there is actually where I got my passion, because we fixed problems by problems and the revenue was going up and more customers was coming. Customers was happy. We brought new products in. And this is actually why I still love so much CX, because you can change something to the better word. And my newest passion is then actually journey management, because with this, you can really bring the connected dots together and combine it and see where you can drive the business and where you can fix a lot of problems. And yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, then Ken is doing his job right if you're saying that your new favorite thing is journey management, because we've been doing a lot of that here at Question Pro. I just like that it sometimes involves Post-it notes. But we're so glad y'all are here, and we're going to start diving into our trends. And if you guys want to download the trend guide that our esteemed panelists have contributed to, Paulina will, our producer, will jump that up on the screen for you if you haven't. But our first trend is AI is now running the experience. AI predicts intent, handles routine work, and reduced costs to serve, speeding resolution with the right data and human oversight. But everybody's got some hot takes on this. So we're going to start with Ken. And Ken, you've said, you know, in customer service, we're seeing a welcome shift with the average handling time, while the human in the loop orchestrates the high emotion and high value expectations. Is that how you see, you know, AI running the experience moving forward? Or some of us, me, doomsday over here, say AI is going to take over the experience. It's going to be terrible.
I tend to think that, and I've seen it already. I mean, 2024, we had like, hey, what does this thing do? It's a cool thing that you can look something up and it gives you a summary, and you know, it's like Google on steroids. But now, I mean, it's really attaching agents to workflows and being able to take care of some of those, I'll call them mundane tasks. We all have them in our job. We you know, Monday through Friday, we get to do, you know, 40% of what we love and 60% of, oh, we have to do this kind of thing. And so I always, you know, I love the fact that we're seeing, like in contact centers, average handle time is starting to disappear as a metric. I thought that was one of the worst metrics ever. And, you know, every contact center manager will disagree with me, but it is one of those things like, hey, I'm just trying to rush you off the call so it can be done. Well, now the agent can handle the AI agent can handle most of the tasks that need to be done in the background, and the agent can just be there for the customer. It can say, how are you? It can listen to the story, can display empathy, and not have to worry about, okay, well, I'm going to have to try and type and do all this stuff while talking to the customer. These agents are running things in the background, getting things done. And, you know, when we start looking at that from outside of even the experience side, from an operational perspective, things are just going to get done quicker. so we can be more predictive about products being on shelves and being able to alert someone like, hey, we scanned 12 of these items. That means the shelf is empty. Get back there and put something up there, or customers are going to miss purchases. So it's really going to enhance the experience, in my opinion. And it gives, customer service, customer facing personnel the opportunity to actually serve, be friendly, and be that good experience.
Nick, I see you nodding your head a lot. I know you kind of agree. You've called AI a force multiplier, but y'all can't just like nod your head. We need some dissenting opinions. But I know you will. You agree with that. Any thoughts on how AI is transforming our service and operations?
Yeah, I got to be careful on what I do with my head here from now on. She's going to call me out, but I think that's 100% true. Like. There's a quote that somebody once said, not named Nick Glimsdahl, but it said, human is the heart and machine is the mastery. And what I like about that is kind of what Ken was saying is you're reducing and removing those mundane tasks for the things that, for one, it helps with the password resets. It helps with the stuff that agent has to do 15, 16, 20 times a day. And they don't actually enjoy that. And so the retention is there. It's also the knowledge, the better knowledge base, the better data, the more information you can provide in real time for like that next best action. So it's popping information. So it's somebody that's brand new to the organization that has no idea about your guys' product or service, and it's making those recommendations, but it's also providing that recommendation for that person that has been there for 20 years who doesn't want to type the same thing over and over and over again, right? I think it comes down to, when it comes to AI, and I recently wrote an article on it, but it's reliability versus capacity. Like, I think the world is always focused on the capacity of the human, not the reliability of the answer. And with the human interaction it could be Thomas writes one answer to a customer, Ken's writing a completely different answer to the exact same question. And so what's the reliability and the consistency of the brand that you're trying to deliver?
Oh, that happens all the time. Whenever I'm disgruntled, I'll just like end the chat and start it again, because if I find someone new, I'll get like probably a better solution.
That's right. And you're not alone. I mean, there's plenty of people that go on social media while they're on hold and this says the call times waiting is 12 minutes. It's super important to stay on the phone, but also that second channel of choice to meeting them where they're at and hopefully getting that problem solved inside of X or wherever you're at.
Yeah, there's definitely some, like if you're like me and Ken who travel a lot, it's like I know exactly how much Alaska Airlines social media team can give me versus like what the customer service team can give me. And I have to like do the math on like how much my time is worth. But Nick, I love it when you always give me like a good juicy like TikTok clip. So thanks for all those thoughtful words. I was like, as you were talking, I was like, and we're going to clip that. Appreciate you. Reliability of the answer is really, I think will be a big trend for AI. Maybe less fun for consumers because we can't hack the system as much, but probably better for, customer experience people. So we're going to go on to, we're going to talk about AI through this whole thing. So if you have some AI thoughts, you can bring them up later, or any final words or thoughts on AI running the experience. Diane, Sarah?
Hey, I have had, I'm having flashbacks about how we're building AI. It's much like the digital transformation. It's much like when social media was launched. We're just rushing to do things and we're not really thinking about what the experience is that we're trying to enable and what value we're creating for the customer or the brand. So the portion of like when you were talking about taking the calls and being more reliable, AI can help us with looking for the signals that tell us, why is the damn call coming in the first place? What broke, or what is the root cause of that? Because AI can look at that because it's connected, done right. It's connected to know those things. So we'll be further ahead in that way, and even being preemptive with some things that we know may happen with customers and making those changes. So it helps us actually point to those things that we might not uncover and get more efficient and effective and add value. Nobody wants to call a care center. Nobody wants to get on a chatbot, honestly. There should be a way for us to communicate upfront and fix those things before they happen. So I think we think about it being an enabler right now. I think it's going to be much more of an enabler internally for experienced teams to really help. What lets us focus on the human and what value we're creating for them, and not having to spend the time to make a call or get on a chat.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Diane. We're going to move on. We've got, a few of these to get through. So if you guys have questions for our panel, put them in the chat, but we're going to keep this rolling. And we're going to start with the next thing, which is journey map or, journey data. And so real-time signals trigger real-time action. Journey data now acts as a control system. Microsignals trigger instances, contextual actions. The real differentiator isn't more data. It's the governance and the fast decision to those action loops. And Thomas, your quote was, the shift in real-time control and systems is delivering measurable impact, reducing resolution time and repeat contacts. By prioritizing critical moments of truth, automatically we ensure data doesn't explain the past, but dictates the future. Ooh, give me some thoughts there. You sound so smart.
Yes, right. I don't know where I got this. No, the thing is, and this is actually perfect as an add-on what Diana was saying, because it's true. We should fix things before they actually happens. It's all of our vision, and sometimes it's not possible. And I do think that we need AI still for this kind of communication. And also when I'm talking to customers and saying that this AI chatbot or this AI agent is not perfect, but at least I'm seeing that a lot of companies are testing this and playing around and want to make it better, because everybody is understanding that AI will not go away. And that's why this journey management is so important, that you can really have this from an operational model, looking at the journey, on the journey framework, on the end-to-end journeys, but also on the micro journeys, to really understand what has actually happened and where is the pain, and then find the real solution for the customer to make an impact on this customer experience, because this is what we all want to do. And there's a main shift, which at least we are seeing in our market, that the people are going a little bit from checking the metrics, what's going on with the NPS, CSAT, and looking more on the journey, on the more holistic framework or holistic approach to look at the data and see what's going on and why this actually happens. But also gives this visibility internally to the different teams, that they understand, hey, what we build is maybe from our point of view good, but if you look at the customer wants to have something different, or the customer wants to communicate. Crystal, you were saying that with the new generation, there will be also new challenges, right? And the company has to work on this. They have to work with the personas and the target group and make it actually then a seamless experience.
Yeah. And, you said a couple, ideas there about working with other teams. And Sarah, in your intro, you talked about how you love collaborating with other teams. How do you see journey, the rise of journey mapping 2.0, or I don't know, I've never been in CX, so it could be still on 1. I don't know. How do you see that kind of tying all these teams together?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing, the clients I'm working with, trying to get them away from those retrospective reports, which really are just a monologue, and moving more into, surfacing up this data, which becomes a dialogue. And so when we have that dialogue, I was working with a pest control company, and when we were seeing customers that were consistently canceling or rescheduling appointments, surfacing that information up to the tech so they can have that one-to-one contact with that customer to find out what's going on in the moment, versus all of a sudden we get a cancellation note, that the client no longer wants to work with us in general. So how can we, surface up that information in the moment so that teams can make it right with customers, because clients are no longer waiting, 24 to 48 hours for, loops to be closed, but how can we do it right there in the moment while we have that customer?
You literally just remind me the house cleaner's coming later, and I was like, I hope they don't show up during this webinar. I had to check my text to make sure they weren't coming early, or like that I needed to cancel. Anyway, side note about my personal life, y'all. But Sarah, I think that is really like a great point, is not looking at stagnant data, the new, adding real-time platforms, or we was even doing this with my marketing team today. Like, how can we have something that you can look at right now to not only, I would say, like, get that little dopamine hit where you're like, I'm doing a great job, but to also make sure you know where you're at in your metrics, in what's changing, because you're right. If I had to wait 24 hours for someone to get back to me, I would just go find another product. And so I think that really can be, part of that journey is like, where's their drop off point and how do we like intercept that? I sound like a CX person right now using all these words. Don't be fooled, guys. I'm still a market research girly if you're watching this. But Diane, we also set out some of your keywords like governance models. How do you think about this next round of journeys for the new generations coming in that still haven't been named?
I think about journey management being our opportunity to not just what I see clients doing is they're mapping just the customer journey and saying, oh, we need to find the places to go fix things. So it's more of a discovery. When you think about journey management, you're looking at the end-to-end. Employees are on stage, they're interacting with the customers, but also all the things that are happening off stage that have to come together to deliver that experience. And so the ability for us to really manage more holistically allows us to do what Thomas mentioned with being able to identify more value. So if we're able to fix, let's say a salesperson doesn't have the right information to give to a client about the product, and they can't find it on the internet. What we look at is how can we make that salesperson more effective? How can we serve up the information so that the customer can get it and the salesperson that is augmenting that? How can the back-end systems deliver that information to the right person at the right time? All of those things help us with the incredible additive business value, I call it. It's not just about the experience you're changing, but you can also measure productivity of the sales team, the backend systems and the content optimization and the savings you have as a result of that. You're developing content that's great for the customer. So when we see journey management, it's being able to look at all of that, but you also have to then align and govern what people are doing, because it's more now about orchestrating the organization and orchestrating the experience. So it's more than just one piece that you have to change. You have to take many more things into account. And so that alignment to getting the teams to work together and having project portfolios and making decisions about where you're going to focus is all about that practice of journey management. And we see that when I think about my kids and how they're interacting with brands, they have such high expectations about what they're going to see, and that you should know me and you should be preemptive with me. Don't wait until, I call you to cancel. Confirm several times beforehand so that I know, or I can cancel or reschedule earlier or later, and understand the why, because the data is going to tell me that. Whether I've seen these same defection indicators with other customers too, I can leverage that information to use. And that's, I think, the power of not just automation and AI, but also of how the organization works differently around the journey.
Diane, it's like where we're going, because the next trend is all about ROI and the P&Ls that CX practitioners have to manage. And so CX ROI must show up in the P&L. In 2026, it's proven by linking journey improvement to revenue, churn reduction, lifetime value, cost savings, not just survey scores, not just that NPS score. So there's clear impact, not casual shenanigan or I always call it like the brand value, right? Like in marketing, you have kind of like our hard metrics and you got like the vibes. So obviously CX has to have those real P&L showing up. And Nick, you said 2 indicators to continue to stand out: lower customer effort and higher journey completion. When effort decreases, repeat contacts and transfers decline, agents speed up with more time solving and meaningful work rather than retracking steps. And this reduces service costs and is a measurable and sustainable way. Thoughts?
Yeah.
These are great. Your words.
Yeah, it was amazing. I'm just going to clip that and put that on my LinkedIn profile.
You're like, I love hearing my own quotes back at me.
Say it again. I think the biggest, and maybe there's that misconception word that comes back to haunt all the CX leaders now, but what you were talking about earlier was the P&L and how they're more focused on the vibes and the buzzwords, and they're actually focused on business outcomes. And what I would challenge the market is, what does your leaders, what are the outcomes that you're hoping to achieve at the highest level inside your organization, and work backwards and understand what your peers are measured on. And then what's your guys' objective from the CX layer, if it's across the entire organization or it's in different silos, and then care what those people are measured on as well. And so when you're communicating with them back to the impact of CX, address how that CX model or that CX metric can focus on improving their metric as well. If you're just talking about pixie dust and fairy tales and how awesome and amazing and vibe worthy this experience is going to be, all they hear is, the Charlie Brown story, right? And what you want them to hear is, they are here for me and with me, and they're going to come and solve my problem along with solving the problem of the organization.
I think that's great. And I kind of want to throw it over to Ken to say, Ken, you work as the president of CX Question Pro. You interact with a lot of customers trying to prove like their ROI. What are some of, how do you think that even AI can support that? Or, how do you make sure we move from like vibes and pixie dust to, real measurable outcomes?
Well, and I think, this is a long-standing thing with me. I think the one thing that we have to remember is customer experience is one part of what the revenue is. And oftentimes you'll have a CFO, a CEO saying, oh, prove to me that the value of this program. Well, okay, prove to me that your product is worthy of selling. There are the two parts to that we always have to consider. But when we start looking at some of the ways that we can demonstrate it, some of the old ways are still really rich in how we can say, hey, by doing this, one of my favorite examples for years and years and years in retail was, hey, out of stocks cost you money. Well, sometimes out of stock is not out of stock. Sometimes out of stock is it's sitting in the back room. So having an agent that can go in there and say, hey, you're out of stock, get this on the shelf and report back to me that it's on the shelf. So you have the AI agent, you have the human in the loop, and everything's in stock. And guess what? You're not losing that money due to out of stocks. And so, a lot of times, a lot of AI tools focus on cost avoidance metrics. How can we reduce the contact center spend, and how can we, how can we take costs out of the system? But when we start looking at it as, there can be positive impact to the P&L by deploying something that says, hey, customers are looking for this. And whether it's a product, whether it's a person, whether it's rage clicking on a website and being able to trigger a prompt that says, hey, clicked on the same place 5 times. So I've never rage clicked, never. But then you can start looking at, how these things can not just be cost avoidance, but also enhancing the experience. And then for me, it all comes down to customer lifetime value. If you know how that customer goes through the journey, we're back to journey maps again, but if you know how they can go through the journey, and the points in that journey overall that fail frequently, get the AI agents involved in those parts where you don't have visibility, such as the website. Get those AI agents involved where, hey, it's a busy day and someone forgot to put milk on the shelf. You're going to lose all those sales. Those kinds of things are really true ways to enhance the customer lifetime value instead of just looking at cost avoidance metrics.
And we actually have a question about this, besides someone saying hi to Diane. Brad Smith asked, do any of you have experience or opinions around using AI agentic agents to secret shop your digital channels to generate a real-time outside point of view across marketing, sales, service segments, and life cycle? This sounds terrifying to me as someone who is in charge of the website, because now all I can think is like someone's going to program an AI to be like, here's everything wrong. But how do you Anybody have some feedback? Diane, this seems to be one of your friends. Would you like to start?
Well, he always has. He's a tough question guy. That's what I call him. Yeah. I think this. Why wouldn't you? The other thing that I see is, in addition to having the AI be a secret shopper, is I see a lot of organizations who are testing their journeys with internal testers, with their employees, and it doesn't give you that outside view. So regardless of the methodology you use, I think, yes, absolutely, because the AI agent is going to try to go different places that the customer would never go. Like they're usually, like, use cases are usually a path and not the unhappy path. That's what I think people don't test. So Brad, you're right. It's creating those unhappy paths and having AI look for those where they run into obstacles and what you can change. So I would say, yes, absolutely can do that. But I want to leap on what you also said too, and it relates to this question, is truly all we're really doing is changing the customer behavior. And I think there's measures against that. If we can change their behavior so that they stay in the digital channel and don't have to come to another channel to get their issue resolved or to look for more product information, that's success. And that success is tied to their behavior of, I now have reduced my cost to acquire or my cost to serve by allowing that customer and helping that customer with experience changes to ensure that their behavior matches what we want them to do or to be able to do. So I think we miss sometimes the measures that go against that. Number of people who onboarding is always an issue for everybody, right? I don't know any company that doesn't struggle with onboarding. Why is that? It's because we don't enable a customer to follow from the time they're done talking to the salesperson, signed the account, or agreed to go, to how they're going to continue to do business with the organization. Nobody owns it. So I think we have to take some of these examples and say, how can we shift the experience, change the behavior, and make sure that customer does the things we want them to do, what their goals are and what they're able to do, so that we can start measuring against that. Not the metrics, not the outcomes, like a net promoter and effort score are great, but they're not going to tell you and show you the numbers behind, if we're able to keep somebody in a digital channel and not get disrupted, what that costs us. So that's why I'm all over. You need to have the C-suite speak and not be talking all of your high level net promoter and effort score. They can be there as a twin to your business case.
I love that. So good, Diane. And then it also kind of starts bringing us into our fourth trend. Trust is designed into the experience. And Sarah, I saw you nodding your head a lot. So we're going to kick off with your quote here. Trust is not built by chance. It is built one thoughtful interaction at a time. It requires moving beyond legal disclaimers to design experience where customers feel safe and respected and are the shared vision for every team. How do you think about that in the digital and, in-person space, kind of as Diane's talking about?
I think it's really vital for us as we're bringing together, customer-facing teams, security and privacy teams, really working together as they're designing, and that we're weaving trust into that development process. So whether that's like transparent data usage or opt-out language that we're putting together, protecting the customer data, making sure that we are getting all those different voices of those team members together. So obviously the customer-facing team is responsible for talking about the customer needs, the impact it might have on customers, testing the plain language, maybe with a customer advisory group before we launch it. But then we also need the input from the security and privacy teams on, like, what are our capabilities? What are some of the risks that we might be missing? What are some of the blind spots that we have as a customer-facing team? So that we're really building the right safety guardrails in place from the get-go, so that we're not eroding trust once we roll something out that hasn't been, had the voices of all of those team members together working on it.
I think that's really true. As long as, like, when it talks about like trust and where your data is and how your data is managed, there's definitely, I think, the younger generations are probably more data aware of where everything has gone, right? We definitely know it's either you have like two camps. You're like, I am all over the internet and I've been abandoned to my data being sold forever. Or you're like, I have some friends who are like, have never had social media in their lives. And so they're like, they actually know where their data is. And I'm like, I started I was on the internet when I was 11. It's gone. But Thomas, you're in the EU, so you have a lot of different data privacy laws than we do here. How does that impact the customer experience kind of from the, I would say, government down versus in the States, we kind of have to go like corporation up?
It's a huge thing. And even I talked yesterday to a huge bank. They even cannot use AI at all, right? So I do think that there are a lot of regulations for certain brands and also in journalistic, right? What they have to do, or insurance companies, what they have to do to use AI is insane, right? So that's why they are still behind it. For sure, I also get it, right? Also, our competitors, they're using the data to play around with this. It's also not clear, and it's also, at least also not for me, really transparent what the AI is really doing with the data. And in Europe, there are certain laws to protect this. And I also see these laws coming in the States. And I do think that we have to do a better job. I guess last year in Amsterdam, I was talking to the guy who was actually was a part of this AI Act, and it was pretty impressive on how many things they have to work in terms of regulation and what is allowed and what not. But yeah, we can also kill ourselves with all of this kind of regulation. So the truth is always behind and somewhere in the middle. But I do think that we have to simplify things, right? But also making sure that the customer can actually still make the decision what needs to be done on the data side.
Ken, you opened your mouth and then you shut it. I saw it.
Oh yeah, no, I'm trying to avoid having any more legal letters go back and forth. But I mean, I think it's transparency is that first step towards trust. I mean, everyone said it, transparency. I mean, what are you doing with the data? I won't name a name, but hey, you've been collecting data for years, and suddenly you found out that buried in the terms and conditions on your renewal that, hey, we can use your data for whatever we want to do.
Who's it rhyme with, Ken?
I'm not even going to go there. I'm just, I'm just going to say icks. I mean, it's just gives me the icks. But I think there's, there's a lot of, there's that friction. I mean, I always think of Minority Report. Hello, Mr. Yamamoto. Would you like another pair of those jeans? I mean, customers want that, but they want to know that they still have control of the data and they can look at the data and, and that's where we're at with AI is sometimes you don't know what your data is being used for, whether it's I've uploaded something to social media or I've used a search engine, and all of that is being tracked. And I think part of that is education, letting customers know, letting the consumers know, like, hey, you don't own your name anymore. Basically, it is you are customer number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in our database, and this is all the information we have about you. This is how we use it, and we will never use it to do this. And that's important to have clear and upfront, not 14 pages of terms and conditions where we might bury a little something that says, yeah, your data is not really your data.
Yeah. And I think that even, I think about this as in marketing, it's like, I'd love to onboard a new tool. And because we work at Question Pro, we kind of get to do whatever we want some days, but it's like reading through those terms and conditions. I'm like, guys, you can always try a new tool. I'm never going to dictate someone use a HeyGen to build a model of themselves because we don't know where that goes, right? There's a lot of really cool tools coming out, but you've got to be a proactive consumer. You can't always rely on people to be proactive for you. And I think that's doing kind of digital education and bridging that digital gap for people on that, consumer experience, but also the consumer education around terms and conditions is really important. But okay, guys, we got 6 minutes left. We got one topic left. It's our bonus topic. And we talk about it every year, so much so I'm like, we should just take it out, but y'all say it's important. It has been the topic for so many years. EX is the multiplier for CX. And we have, shout out to Sonia Lucina, our PhD organizational psychologist who leads our employee experience program. She really is passionate about this. Her and Ken are pretty good friends. But y'all, I've read one case study about it from JLL that everybody references, and it's like, I get it, guys. But see, when EX is aligned to journeys, not jobs, employees gain clarity and decision power as AI handles routine work. This lowers customer effort, churn, and reworks, enabling more empathetic experiences. Diane, the biggest EX shift is moving from job-based work to journey-based accountability. When people understand how their work impacts the whole journey, they act faster and collaborate better. Take us away with this last trend.
I do believe that if you think about the drivers of trust, so one of the things that we think about is we immediately go to data because it's a hot poker right now. But when you think about the drivers of trust, that consistency of messaging, that ability to be seamless, like if I call the company and they tell me one thing and I get online and it tells me something else, I don't trust. So I can't trust your answers. I can't trust you as a brand. Mm-hmm. So I think we have to be very comprehensive in thinking about how, when we create those experiences, we are showing up across that journey. So this alignment for employees to understand what they do is not in a vacuum. What they do has to be aligned with everything else. So the approach is really journey thinking of, wait a minute, I'm sending a communication to this client about the onboarding experience, but I don't really know what happens. Getting them to think that way about what's going to happen and how they're communicating and aligned with those communications, for example, or how you design, you have 3 websites. Are they all designed the same? You have different ways of approaching customers. Are you selling the same way? What's the messaging you're giving them? Can they trust that you're going to deliver on the promise that you're making? We really have to think about holistically how that comes across to the customer, because even though they won't tell you they want to trust you, that's what we're looking for. But there's so many things that are trust impacts that you really have to care for in addition to the data. So I think the employees have to understand why that's important and understand how they need to show up. And nobody's going to say they don't want to show up that way. We just haven't led them to the water to drink and help them to understand the impact that they're having and what they're doing to really drive the outcomes that we're after.
One of the things that I'm seeing is taking some of the work from Riders and Elephants and to Diane's point, making sure that we're operationalizing the values with the employees who are doing it so that they can clearly stitch their daily work to how it's driving the organization. And so, we all have the values on our website or printed up on a placard in the walls of the hallway. But how are we actually making those customers feel trust or accountability or integrity? I mean, we can all say the values, but what does that actually mean? So what can I do as a team member to make my customer feel cared for or feel, trust in me? And so having those employees write that down, and then they in fact are then creating their service standards without me as a leader pushing them down to them, but instead they have now written their own guiding behaviors that we can then use as we continue to roll out, obviously year-end reviews or other things like that. But they are really clear on what good looks like.
Yeah, you look at the Apple Credo. If you've ever seen the Apple Credo come to life, like they teach the people at Genius Bar feel, felt, found. And what that aligns them to from a behavior standpoint, Sarah, bringing it to life is when they're talking to somebody, they say, I understand how you feel. I've found that X, Y, and Z with my computer. And I feel, felt, found. So I empathize with you. I felt the same way when I went through it, and found is, how do you find that solution? I found that if we just go in and do X, Y, and Z on your computer, it probably will help. So by ingraining that in their behavior, that employee is so important to how that brand shows up with empathy, with problem solving. That's what builds trust.
Oh my gosh.
All
my Apple experiences have just been, Diane, you just I thought they were so thoughtful. No, it was, Oh no, I'm betrayed.
No, that's how they show up as a brand. Like they're taught, even if somebody comes into the Apple store and they want gaming, if they're looking for gaming stuff, they point to the Microsoft store. It's like, we don't have that. We're not the experts at that. You need to go somewhere else. I mean, they're very true to their brand. And to Sarah's point, spot on, Sarah, if you don't define that, the employees will define it for you.
And Thomas, I know you do a lot of employee experience work. That's probably your other like side passion. What are your thoughts about the employee experience CX combo?
Yeah, it's actually, or it's getting even more important, because we also talked about this, and in our industry, there was also kind of a joke that we are not saying that we are connecting the silos, because the silos will be always there, right, in the organization. But what is important, that the silos talk to each other and work with each other. And you can only achieve this if you have a good employee experience. So in past, it was always, and I guess we are talking about this, if you're doing a good EX, the customer will also be better because the employees will treat them. But I guess when we are looking on the journey side, it's even getting more important, because the teams has to work cross-functional with IT, with the marketing, with the website. And this has to be driven from the organization. So this topic is actually given more and more importance. So that's why more and more customers from us are also measuring the CX impact on the EX side, right? Thus, the employees understand what means customer experience.
Yeah, Thomas, I always
for me. Oh, I'd love to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I always say as a married guy, if mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And the same is true with your employees, right? They're a direct reflection of how you treat them, inform them, educate them to serve their customers.
Happy life.
I love that. Well, guys, you have been an amazing panel. I'm going to give, everybody kind of a rapid fire. We're going to go real quick. No, I'll cut you off if it's too long-winded, and that's just by my own discretion. Starting just as we did the first time, we'll go Nick, Diane, Thomas, Sarah, and we'll end with Ken. What if you had one thing to prioritize in 2026 for a CX team? What would it be?
Oof. If it has one thing to prioritize your data. Like that, like Diane said, that is the hot prod right now that people are focusing on. But if you don't have clean data, then everything else is going to fall apart. So also focus on your employees, right? We just talked about that.
Perfect. Diane, one thing to prioritize in 2026.
I would double down on what Nick said, of course. I believe
unfair, right?
If we don't prioritize how this work gets done, and how we're going to get all these things we've talked about have been great, but how are we aligned? Our leadership aligned to what needs to change? So I think we have to really start at the beginning of this needs to be built into the strategy. That growth strategy that they have needs to be enabled, and it's all dependent on the customers and the employees and their behaviors and what they do every day. So how are we going to align leadership to get these things done that we need to get done, including breaking the silos, including getting the data aligned, and including how are we focusing on the employees when we already do a survey, aren't we good? So it's leadership.
Thomas, one thing CX needs to prioritize in 2026.
Focused on the highest ROI.
Okay, there we go. Quick. Thomas, I can always count on you for a very succinct answer. Sarah, one thing to focus on in 2026.
I'm just afraid people are getting distracted and something shiny. And, AI might scale your reach, but only empathy and connection can really scale your experience. And so I want people to kind of quiet the noise and get back to basics in terms of how we are treating our employees so that they can take better care of our customers.
And Sarah, you just built me a great clip right there. Ken, one thing to prioritize in 2026 for CX teams.
It's 2 words, but it's a lot bigger idea, and it's just journey understanding. All of the things that we talked about pile into understanding what customers are going through, what employees are going through, and what companies are going through to make and better serve their customers.
Amazing. I appreciate y'all. I'm so glad you were here for, I think this is the 3rd or 4th year we've done this, Ken.
Lucky number 4.
yeah, I was like, I used to have short hair and now I have long hair. So, you know, it's been a while.
I still have short hair. So.
But we are so grateful for all of our panelists. Make sure you friend them on LinkedIn, follow them, download the guide. There was even more people included that were not here today. You know, download this guide, give it a share. And there is even something I find really fun that we did in this was we also, I didn't talk about it, but we also field surveys about each topic to consumers. So there's consumer trends inside of here, really showcasing how people are feeling about it, not just CX experts, because y'all are the experts, but we're the customers. And so, you know, I'm so glad y'all are here. Thank you so much and have an amazing Tuesday.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Yeah.